All right. Well, thank you all for coming today. Today we have a very fun program for you. We are running a panel of experts here who happen to be young people and also Republicans. These guys didn't know that those existed. Encourage them. Clap for them. These guys are Trump supporters.
There you go.
That's what this is. That's right. Make America great again.
Did you buy T-shirts yet?
Go in and get some T-shirts. Go spend your parents' money in there, right? So guys, today we're going to just go through introductions, right? We have, like I said, we have an expert panel. These people are highly vetted. We are going to have very comprehensive, well-articulated answers to the questions that I have today, right? That's what everyone is expecting. That's what the panel is here for. So Kip, we'll start with you.
I really love how seriously you take this, Max. This is great. My name's Kip Christensen. I work up and down the Republican field as kind of one of our token young millennials. Tokenism, right? Okay. So, I've worked for the state party, I've worked for campaigns, I've worked on the outside, I've worked in the activist world, and we're looking to grow the state party and turn Minnesota red in 2018.
My name's Billy Grant. I've lived in the St. Paul area my whole life. I've worked on campaigns in North Dakota, Minnesota, Nevada, Illinois, and a couple of other states. I'm a Republican political operative, support Republicans, huge fan of our president, Donald Trump, and yeah, we're going to turn Minnesota red, and we're going to get so tired of winning that, everyone will get tired of it. So.
Hi, I'm Allie Eichmann. Unlike these guys, I'm not a staffer or an operative. I'm an activist. So I've been involved in a lot of different groups, in the college Republicans and the young Republicans here in Minnesota.
Okay, hi, I'm Anya, and I do question Max's vetting procedures, the integrity of the systems. But I'm Anya, and I'm a born and raised Republican, small-town farm girl who studied constitutional history, and I currently work as a historian at the Minnesota State Capitol.
Hi, my name is Xavier Bickett. I'm on the older end of the millennial spectrum. Now, I don't even know if I'm a real millennial, but I'm the chair of my local Republican district, which covers East Bloomington and Richfield. I've been involved in the Minnesota Young Republicans for a while, and I was Rand Paul's regional director for his presidential campaign, and currently I'm the chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus. Max, I'm really excited for you to take this away.
All right, you guys, so we'll get kicked off with the panel right now. For those of you just joining us, we have a bunch of people who are young people who also happen to be either Republican, conservative, what have you. You guys, normally they talk about money and influence in politics, right? Now, as young people, we don't typically have that, right? We're still building our career. We're all dirt poor, I think. Xavier might be rich. Probably. I don't know. What role do we play in conservative politics and Republican politics in general? What kind of influence do we play, especially coming up in 2018?
All right, so let's take a step back here for a second and look at the Sunday liquor sales law that just changed. I think a lot of people were excited about Sunday liquor sales. When you look at the process that changed that law, it was a lot of people that were younger that were lobbying their local legislators, having meetings, talking to people, saying that they wanted, to be able to buy alcohol on Sundays. And I think a lot of young people played a role in that on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat. So we may not have money, we may not have influence, but we do have time, we do have energy. And I think that when you look at the Sunday liquor sales law, young people had a huge impact on that.
And going off of that, how young people can get involved is through our energy, and we can be the boots on the ground for a party or for a movement. Instead of donating to campaigns, we can donate our time and our effort.
I also think in our generation, or generations, plural, are kind of in an interesting time because I notice we don't have that strong bipartisanship that maybe our parents and grandparents have. I think like more young political activists are willing to listen to other sides, as far as I can tell, I think we have friends on both sides, and we're willing to compromise and hear all sides, which is good.
I want to echo kind of what Allie just said. We have time, talent, and treasure. Some of those we have more of than others. But one of the things we do have is passion. We have passion for our future because the decisions we make right now are going to impact our lives for the very, very long term in a way that's very different from most of the voting population. And so we need to get our voices out there. We need to learn what we can and get active on the ground because these things will impact us. The things that we've thought of in a short-sighted type of lens, we need to reevaluate and constantly work towards making our lives better, not just 5-10 years from now on the business cycle or on the political cycle. We need to think over our life cycle of how we're making our lives better for ourselves and, yes, for our families to come. And that's sometimes in conflict with what a lot of people and policies we're currently pushing. We need to express our voice, raise our voices through the endorsement system, get out there and influence elections in these ways, and that's one of the ways we do it, and that's why we should.
So, talking about our generation, as a whole, we're going to do a lot of generalizing today. And we don't normally, as a party, like to do that. We really do see people for their ideas and for their thoughts and their opinions versus anything else that would try to divide us. But as a whole, when we deal with college specifically, there are a lot of us around our age that don't believe what we believe. Why is that? What drives that? Because we are a minority as a younger population. Billy, we'll start with you.
So yeah, when you look at the 2016 election, there were a lot of younger people that supported Bernie Sanders or other economic policies that are not effective and have been proven time and time again that they don't work. I think what a lot of the younger people don't understand is how effective deregulation and good economics actually is. When you look at 1984, when we deregulated the telecom industry, that actually created a ton of growth, and now we see companies like Google and Amazon. And so that was actually a result of deregulation and good capitalist policy. So I think a lot of it is really just that young people don't understand capitalism. They don't understand that it has a tremendous positive impact on our society. So you talk about deregulation of the telecom industry, the airline industry. We've actually made our economy a lot stronger with good conservative capitalist policies. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, but it's our job to make sure that they do.
And I think in reference to the part of your question about being like a minority on college campuses politically, in Minnesota, I have the CNN exit polls from 2016 in front of me, but Trump won 18 to 24-year-olds in Minnesota. So it's not that people don't agree with us on campus, we're being shouted down. That's what's happening on college campuses. There are people that agree with you, they're just quieter. And that's something that we need to address. They don't feel like being a conservative on campus, we can voice our opinions.
There are a lot of issues, all right, that we kind of spearhead as the Republican Party. For millennials specifically, I find it very interesting that we seem to tilt one way. Now Xavier runs the Republican Liberty Caucus. I tend to think that millennials, liberty resonates a little bit better than some older generations. What are some of the biggest issues that you guys hear from your friends or your coworkers, that kind of thing, that Republicans can lean on going forward into the future?
One of the big things, and this is from the College Republican National Committee, they did a report in 2016. The biggest issue that Republicans, I think, can actually work on is environmental. It's a conservative approach to environmental problems in our country, because in that report, the top issue was the environment to millennials.
Off that point, Max and I have a podcast, and we discussed that just recently. The environmental approach for why are we against so many of these environmental reforms on the local level? We want local control. We want local government. As solar panels and things of that nature are becoming more economically viable, we should have them on our houses. When it makes sense. When it makes sense, do that. when it makes sense, make things more local. Now, the regulation on a national level, the science is still very much out, and we need to, as millennials. Another poll I just saw of outside of the college realm that you're talking about, but across the entire millennial spectrum, the number one issue for people in our age group is 47% the environment and policy around it, and so we need to make our positions known on that. That on one side of the coin, we are for local control. We are for better stewardship, better conservation. At the same time, we also realize that regulation in a vacuum, when it doesn't impact the rest of the world, is only harming us in a lot of cases. And we could stand up as kind of that shining point on the hill, but very few are going to follow us in that losing win. Would you like to come up here and share your advice on that factor? I'd love to hear your opinions. Well educated, elucidated. Elaborate on that thought. Thank you. Anyway, yeah, we've got other millennials out here in the audience.
Hey, did you have a question for our panel? We have a very impressive panel today.
I do have a question.
All right.
It's not regarding environment, if that's okay.
You're supposed to Hey, just don't cuss. Please don't
I won't
cuss.
cuss. I'm sorry. Can I ask you a question on environment? Is that cool? Yes, please. Thank you. Stand for freedom, right? That's what America's for. You want to answer this? Billy's got this. I want to hear what you say.
Okay, so whenever we're talking about Russia, you need to understand that there's...
I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're obviously a geopolitical foe of the United States. The president understands that. Okay, so I don't... the assumption that the president doesn't understand that he's somehow an ally with Russia, I mean, there's no evidence to support that. Okay, so he has taken steps to further sanctions on Russia. Are you aware of that?
I am.
Okay, so that's a pretty strong action against Russia. So I'm looking at where you're talking about collusion, where you're talking about him being an ally. There's no evidence to support it. Yeah. Okay. So let me finish. But there's no evidence. The news media, it's good for ratings. The president does have very high ratings on news organizations when you talk about Russia constantly. But, here we are. We're a couple months into the presidency. There's no evidence whatsoever to support that he colluded with Russia in any way, shape, or form. So until that happens, I think it's basically a non-issue. And, we're going to move on to another topic.
And I do think it's important.
That's good.
Yeah, you can respond. We do have an ongoing investigation that's happening right now.
That's what I was going to... Well... Thank you again. What I was going to say was, I do agree that I think that a lot of news is sensationalized.
Conversational lubricant.
I think they do bring a lot of points that maybe aren't necessarily true, and they kind of blow up things. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But what I do have to say is, what about Robert Mueller's investigation and how he has all these people where Donald Trump Jr. is bringing all these people in. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good.
Where Robert Mueller is bringing all these people in, where that they have collusions with Russia and things like that, and they're bringing in a lot of these allegations. Like, how do you guys respond to that?
I'll take that happily. This is our process. This is how we do things.
It is. I agree.
Accusations are raised. If evidence is found or has been found, which it hasn't yet, once those things happen, you will see a grand jury impaneled if there is damning evidence behind that. There's not right now, and that's why we're at the stage of investigation that you're talking about. We truly, and I agree. We have our best minds on it. We have our best investigators on it. We have the most fundamentally, bipartisanly vetted and approved of people taking on this investigation. And I think we couldn't be asked to do anything more.
He's got the right
Thank you.
idea.
You guys have a good day. I appreciate it. No, appreciate it. Thanks for adding your voices.
And if you guys want to stop at the gift shop, get a Make America Great Again t-shirt, 25% is on me! 25%! I'll cover it. Yeah, so I want to get back to the question that we were talking about. That was a great discussion. That is one thing about our party, you guys. We do not shut down the speech of our opposition. We are committed to you having free speech, regardless of whether or not we agree with that. We always will, right? So we want to get back to the issue at hand. What do millennial conservatives care about right now? What is something we should be focusing on?
I guess I totally agree with both of what you guys said about the environment. I think that's an underrepresented part of young conservatives and just the millennial generation altogether. So I third that. I would also like to add that I think, because Max, you were talking about what could we drive to get more millennials into the conservative movement. I think a lot of it is we need to stress that we care about choices, because young people always care about choices, and in terms of healthcare or education or whatever, what have you, we're in this time where we have more choices than we've ever had in the history of humankind. And if we can highlight that the Republicans and conservatives and liberty-minded people value choices, I think that's a really good thing that we can do to bring them into the party.
I think a lot of millennials and young people want transparent government, and they want accountability, not just less government necessarily, but good government. And I think sometimes when things aren't transparent, that's when young people start looking at outsiders. When you look at someone like a Trump or like Bernie Sanders, who got a lot of young people supporting him as an outsider who was someone willing to buck the system. Same with Trump. This whole thing was the media is against you. They're not giving you the real information, and I think they kind of respected that outsider take instead of always this establishment politics.
And I want to hit on that a little bit. I tend to think that we spend a little bit too much time on the idea of Donald Trump and everything that it meant for this election. How do we, as young, principled conservatives who came into this party for a reason, how do we deal with the phenomena of Donald Trump? Because we are talking about somebody who has not had historically a conservative, just a boilerplate conservative message. Billy, I'll start with you.
So one of the greatest presidents we've ever had, the late great Ronald Reagan, was one time a Democrat in California, and he became a conservative. So I think that's important to note that, obviously people have a change of heart, and obviously the president has done that. But I think, when you look at Donald Trump, it represents frustration with government, and I think that transcends many generations. Like Xavier was just talking about, people want transparent government. They want good, efficient government that they think is working for them. So I think when you talk about the phenomenon of Donald Trump, people need to understand that we can have an impact and shake up the status quo at a local level. I talked about Sunday sales earlier. The issues go on, whether it's property taxes. Chris Coleman, the Democrat over there, wants to raise property taxes 24% in St. Paul. Okay, so, you have local issues that you can really have an impact on, and we can still shake up the status quo at the local level as young people. So I think when you take Trump, use his energy and the phenomenon behind him to shake up things at the local level, that's how we can make an impact.
And I just want to add one thing. The conservative movement and even the political party in the GOP is more than just one person and one candidate. There's a lot of different voices that are on the right of center side of politics, and I think that's important.
Yes, and actually just to add to that, and I hope I don't shoot myself in the foot, I just want to say too that as Americans and as young people, all of us, when we pledge our allegiance, we pledge it to the flag. And yeah, I totally agree that this party is not just one person, and as Republicans, we do support our president. Anybody in this country, we should support our president and remind them what our goals are for this country. But it is good to remember that we can make an impact on a local level, and also listen to the people that came out to vote last year for Donald Trump, because he attracted a lot of the vote that wasn't traditionally Republican. So it's our responsibility as just Americans in general to listen to all these people and hear all the diversity that brought us together with this Commander-in-Chief.
Now let me ask you guys, I can ask these guys questions all day long. Do we have any audience questions for our expert panel today? Otherwise I can keep asking them questions. And I will. We don't have any volunteers. But we will eventually, I suppose. Let me ask you guys something. As conservative Republican millennials, do social issues still have a place in our party? And I ask that, right? Because one, we have a figurehead of our party who has been on both sides of the social issues aisle. I tend to think, and this could just be the millennial in me, right? I tend to think that many people in our generation don't care as much about, when we talk about gay marriage, when we talk about abortion, when we talk about a lot of these normally controversial issues. Do those issues specifically have a place in our party?
So I think a lot of people may not know that or think that the Republican Party has a diverse range of ideologies or issues or opinions. Kind of like what Ali said is the Republican Party actually has you could have pro-life Republicans, pro-choice Republicans. It's pretty diverse. With young people and social issues, they may in their heart believe in these social issues, social conservative issues, but they may not think that government should be imposing those views on other people. And I think that's where the younger generation is starting to have a more liberty-minded viewpoint where it may be important to them as they are very, very socially conservative. They just don't want the government, they don't want to have their views forced on someone else.
And also, just to speak on the pro-life issue, millennials are actually more pro-life than Generation X. And the generation after millennials, I think it's like Generation Z or something like that. They're more pro-life than millennials. So that's just a trend that's happening right now. I'm not sure why, but it's interesting.
Would it be the difference between? Would it be the difference between abortion as a means of birth control versus abortion as an emergency solution? So maybe one time versus saying constant on and on and on. It's like figure it out, you guys, right?
That may well be part of the conversation why we're seeing that trend. I think on the social issues question, we need to very clearly distinguish between social issues and moral issues. I think we often ramp a lot of things together. We can look at, for example, healthcare as a social issue or a economic issue, and I think depending on how you look at those things, we might come up with different responses. But you look at freedom of speech. Is that a social issue, a moral issue? Like where I think that's one of our social issues that we stand very, very strongly on.
Yep.
I think that there are all sorts of other civil rights issues. We are the party historically of civil equality, and we stand strongly on that tradition. And we're not gonna let someone else rewrite those books. But we are a party that stands, and I think millennials stand maybe even more vocally than other generations for that equality principle. And how does our involvement with government influence the way that you live your life? Is government helping you gain more freedom of access to certain things? It's wonderful that we have provided equal access to the services that are rightly provided by government for all. That is a wonderful thing. However, when do we hit that line where then you force other free individuals, not in the relationship of a government to an individual or a service provider? When do we hit that line of forcing someone else to provide a service? Could that be because you want to shut down service to people on political persuasion, on religious persuasion? When do we draw that line? And who's going to pay for that service? Who's going to pay for that time? These are the questions that we are very happy to have, and I think that's not a black and white issue. It's a very gray issue, and it's one that we need to think very clearly on. And the clarity of thought is something that I think we like to cultivate among ourselves. Critical thinking, things of that nature. We do not like groupthink. We do not like believing the principle that just because someone who we typically trust says something, it must be true. I think a lot of us look, and one of the reasons we're here today and not in a different booth somewhere else, is because of that inherent questioning of, are we doing what is the best thing? Even when we think that America is the greatest country in the world, even when we're there, could we be somewhere greater? Could we have taken a different path at a different time that put us on a different trajectory? And I think we all believe yes, and that's what we're fighting for.
And I wanna hit on that a little bit, and then something else that Xavier said. So we have a party that there are very assorted beliefs within our own party. It's one of the big reasons why it's very hard, and you guys may not know this, it's very hard for Republicans to pass legislation once in a while, only because we represent a diverse set of thoughts. We don't fall in line with the marching orders. Now that said, what do you need to be a Republican? What is a Republican? How do we view that? We have a diverse set of thought. We have a big tent. We have a lot of people that we want to include in this movement. What do we believe?
I guess I just wanted to kind of even touch a little bit more on that too. For one thing, in the history of Minnesota's state legislature, we were the independent Republican Party, and I think a lot of people don't realize that we aren't, that we weren't just like a kind of nugget of conservatism, that we had a lot of independent-minded people in our state legislature. And then also, I was reading some articles that were talking about the people that subscribe to one party or the other nationwide, and it's like 30% that are Democrat and then like 25% that are Republican. And this article is making it sound like that was a bad thing. But in a lot of ways, I think that's a good thing, because what that means is that, of course, Minnesota GOP, right? But I think what that means is that we have a lot of people that vote in line with our party, but they do it freely. It's not because you have to subscribe 100% to what your party dictates. It's that you choose candidates on the local level and up to the federal level. And as for those issues, I think it is a very diverse platform. The press, the media, we get these talking points that make it out there more than others, but it isn't just, you look at the five of us, and you could just think we're a bunch of white young Republicans from Minnesota, Wisconsin.
I live here now.
But I know that every single one of us is very diverse in what we care about, and I think, I guess, for example, there are those social things. Like there are Republicans that are still pro-life. I think that for millennials, like Max was saying, the majority of us are pro everybody getting married if you want to get married, right? I don't even want to say gay marriage because we're pro everybody getting married, And we're basically conservative. I think that, I work really hard for the money that I have. I don't have a lot, and I'd rather keep it in my own hands and be kind to other people on my own accord. And of course, we got to pay for taxes for roads, but when our country was founded, it was very limited what our country took in taxation. It went for basic things like military, defense, and roads. Okay? Even education, I think we could probably do some more independent funding.
All right, so I want to talk about one thing specifically that Max talked about with Republicans not necessarily always voting together. That happened with the Democrats too. It took Obama 22 months to pass Obamacare, something that people don't really talk about a lot. But when you look at things that we need to come together on, I think the healthcare legislation is an example of this. We can't look at the micro effects of what's happening today. When you look at some of the Republican senators that voted against it, I really wish they would have considered the macro effects, the impact this is going to have long term, that you're moving the healthcare system in a freer, more decentralized, there we go, some of my old baseball teammates in the audience there. So you're moving the system, in a more decentralized direction. When you decentralize things, you get lower cost of delivery and a better product for the consumer. So I think that people need to understand, as Republicans, we need to focus on coming together, focus on how we can change things better for the long term, and worry less about the micro effects, meaning the short-term political heat for taking a health care vote.
And I think going back to your original question about what does it take for you to join the group, basically, I think there isn't a litmus test for Republicans, and I think that's really good. The Democrats, especially in recent months, from the DNC leadership, they wanted to make abortion issues a litmus test to be a part of their party, to be a candidate in their party. That didn't go over super hot with certain candidates. And in our party, we don't have that. And I think that's really good if you believe in things like personal responsibility and individual liberty. And it kind of matters, what does that mean to you? They're vague terms on purpose, but we don't have a litmus test.
I think personal responsibility responsibility. You hit the nail right on the head. We're the party of personal responsibility, and we're the party of self-reliance, of depending on ourselves, on pulling ourselves up by our own bootstraps, and not having everybody take care of us, and taking responsibility.
Reagan had a test for his Big Ten. If you agree with me on 80% of the issues, you're already inside. For me, I take that one step further, and it's much more in line with elections. If you agree with me on 50% of the issues, plus one, join us. Be our friends. Join us. You don't have to give your time, talent, treasure like the rest of us maybe do, but just do that. If we agree on 50% of the issues plus one, you're already inside the Big Ten.
I want to touch on that personal responsibility piece just a little bit and pulling yourself up from the bootstraps, because not everyone has that opportunity, right? So sometimes people look at the Republican Party and say, well, you're not for the little guy. You're not, you're worried about yourself and taking care of yourself, but that's not always the case. I think a lot of Republicans will look at taking care of those that are less fortunate as not a cookie cutter approach from the highest level of government, but taking care of them at a more local level. And so that's something that as Republicans, especially as millennials that do care about other people, do care about the less fortunate, that's something, a part of our messaging, and doing it by action is something that the young people can do when they're getting involved to make a better difference.
I can think about it. In order to take care of others,
We have another panel member. Join us.
but in order to take care of other people, one first has to take care of yourself. And so if you're solid and you're confident in what you're doing, then you're better equipped to help other people. If you're all over the place, you don't know what you're doing, how can you even hope to bring any kind of unity or any kind of assistance to others? So I think, what I grew up with, my generation, was you went out, and if you didn't have money for college, you went and you got a grant, or you got a scholarship, or you worked part-time. And now, there's such a sense of entitlement that even the people that are looking for entitlement don't feel like they have to participate. It's owed to them. And they're entitled to all of these things without giving back. And I think we're the party of giving back by virtue of the fact that we're bringing ourselves up, and we're asking people to join us, and we're showing them how, rather than giving them gifts of things, that they don't know what to do with. So anyway, I'll cover.
Hey y'all, if you're just joining us, we have a panel here of expert young Republicans. Give it up for them, all right? Give it up for them. You don't hear about these people from CNN. You got a question? Come on over. Come on over.
As you can see my sweater, I'm a North Dakota, Georgia boy. And interesting enough, living in Georgia for 17 years and all this anti-Confederate stuff, the KKK was dominantly Democrats. There was no such thing as Republican Party during the slave days. And of course, if you speed up to the 50s and 60s, again, it was the Democrats that stood against civil rights. And it blows me away that some folks don't know that. But yeah, the KKK was dominantly Democrat. Thank you.
Very good.
And
Very good.
good luck for Georgia.
Very good. Very good. So question off of that though, right? When we talk about the race issue, right? We have a lot of events, a lot of current events that have happened lately, especially in Charlottesville and that kind of thing, where we tend to be rhetorically the party of white old males. How do we as Republicans deal with issues of race and issues of racial prejudice and that kind of thing? How do we respond to something like Charlottesville? General question, but how do we deal with that?
I just want to make a quick statement on that. Racism is disgusting, and what happened in Charlottesville has no place in our party.
So I 100% agree with that. And when people talk about current events, I wish the president was a lot stronger in his initial statement. I think we can all agree on that, but I think we can also agree that the narrative was completely, at many times it was dishonest, I think, to say that he did not condemn white supremacists. He absolutely did, and that is the truth. So anyway, when you look at our presidential candidates, I think we had 16 or 17 candidates that ran for president. 17. So we had Carly Fiorina, extremely smart woman from the business world. We had Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Bobby Jindal. So we have Ben Carson. We had a very diverse field of candidates. And when you look at the Democrats, they had an old white man and an old white woman and Martin O'Malley. Okay, so they had a couple, but we had the more diverse group of candidates. And our chairwoman of the Minnesota Republican Party is an Asian American. So, you know, I mean, the race thing is we need to condemn racism, obviously, and we have and we do. And I think people need to understand that we're a very diverse party. We don't get enough credit for that.
I totally agree with that. And I actually think a lot of the fault actually falls to the Republican Party in our marketing. The truth is, like you guys just said, you know, we as not just young Republicans in general across the country, and of course there are always going to be racist people, but they're not always conservative. Many of them are Democrats. Many of them are apolitical. The problem with the image that we have as Republicans in general is that we are just not marketing ourselves. I think the same goes actually for the environment. We're not taking a stand and saying, hey, you want to know something? We have always cared about all people in this country. We've always been a diverse party, and a lot of it really just kind of falls to poor marketing. So let's keep it up.
All right, we have another question from the audience today. This one, there is a specific personal relationship with somebody on the panel. We won't reveal with who.
So echoing what Anya was saying about...
Can you hold the mic up?
Yeah, echoing what Anya was saying about diversity and you know, marketing yourself. Seeing this panel, you are a panel of individuals who are white, and I think that there's a lot that can be done to include people who are people of color, people who are indigenous, new Americans. So I guess my question for this panel is, what are you actively doing as young Republicans to engage people of color, indigenous people, new Americans to the Republican Party?
So that is a great question, Andy. Thank you. First off, I actually just want to highlight a big thing about diversity that I think, not just Democrats, I think a lot of people, we forget that diversity is more than skin deep, okay? If we are truly not racist, then we don't look at a bunch of white people and think they're not diverse, right? And so that's one thing. I mean, diversity of thought is very important to consider as well. Secondly, to actually address how we're reaching out to people of ethnic minorities and cultural minorities, I do think that as Republicans we could do a better job of that, absolutely. I think we could be spending more time in the city in particular, because where we seem to have a lot of people. But the other problem is that the education system has gotten quite corrupt, and it's hard for conservative-minded people to infiltrate the education system the way the Democrat Party has.
Were you here yesterday? So yesterday we had a panel of immigrants that came that are part of the Republican Party, and that was specifically from people of different cultural backgrounds that were representing the Republican Party. We also have the Asian American caucus. We have the Hispanic American caucus. We have the Somali caucus. So there are a lot of different ways the Republican Party is doing outreach into different cultures. But on what Anya said, diversity is not just your skin color, it's also your diversity of thought as well. So I'm glad that you brought that. Get in there too. Yeah. So recently, after the Philando Castile shooting, as the chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus, we invited out an organization called Black Guns Matter to Minnesota to do outreach into the black community, talking about Second Amendment rights, firearms safety, interaction with police officers if you get pulled over, and more about your rights, Second Amendments. And it was very well received. 75 to 100 people there, and it was just going out into the community. And a lot of the times, and even what I got was like, well, where's the Republican Party been? And that was actually a question that I got. And you know, within the party, people are coming and going, but it's not something that we're gonna just give up on. It's something that I continue to plan doing, and I still do.
And something in the past, the Republican Party has not done a great job of reaching out to communities that they don't feel like will ever welcome them there. And yeah, that's tough, but it's our job as candidates and activists to continue to reach out to our neighbors and our communities to make sure that people understand that we're here for everyone. We believe in individuals, and we believe in helping out our communities and making sure that everyone is being prosperous. Like, that's what we're founded on, and I think we need to do a better job, and we have been recently, especially in the state of Minnesota, but I think there's always room for improvement.
The young Republican, the young millennials that fit our demographic and age demographic are on other panels. So Robert Yang, Dee Dee. So our young millennials that have an Indian background. I was out at the India Fest. Were you there? Yeah, I was there. Yeah. So those are things we're doing. So, but I just want to add, those young millennials that don't look white are on other panels, just not here today.
We've got this big screen up here that shows you the other panels. They're on there.
All right, Max, show it to you.
Yeah. So hopefully that adequately answered that. I want to get back to a few questions ago. We talked a lot about personal responsibility, and we are the party of personal responsibility. We are the party of growth, and we are the party of opportunity. I want to ask you guys this question, because it seems like the fundamental philosophy behind everything we believe is the individual themselves can do it better than the collective, than the government. You know, when you have a group of people coming together, contributing their own set of skills, they do it better than this government-organized collective. Why do we believe that? Why do we believe that the government is, it sounds like we believe that the government is a bad thing.
As much as I'd like to joke about that, I don't think government is a bad thing. I think government is just oftentimes inefficient and slow-moving and bureaucratic. I talked about this earlier, and I hate to keep going back to this, but when you look at deregulation and allowing companies to thrive and not allowing the government to come in and have excessive regulations, that's when we do better. So I think individuals in general have produced extremely profitable companies, products. When you look at Facebook, Google, tech companies like that, a lot of them were started by a couple people. So I think we don't necessarily think the individual is better than the collective or one's better than the other, I don't think, but I think we all think that individuals given a solid chance to create and produce products, results, companies, they're going to do it better than the government, because the government is naturally slow-moving, bureaucratic, and inefficient.
And we live in a startup generation, so we see our peers, whether we're participating or we see our peers, start their own companies, small companies, and they make a good amount of money where they can support themselves. We see people, our peers, becoming YouTube stars and making money off of that. We see people becoming Uber and Lyft drivers and being able to support young families. And then in Austin, Texas, they regulated Uber, so they didn't exist anymore to support the cab companies. And then young people were out of jobs, young people were out of safe rides home after being at a bar, and then it got so bad that, our generation petitioned the Austin city government, and Uber and Lyft were allowed back a couple months ago. So we want to be able to take our ideas and our passions and make a life out of them, and the government, what we've experienced is that it gets in the way. Good job, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
It's really easy to say to someone who's standing there telling you, we're going to give you all the things you've ever wanted and we're going to give you for free or low cost. It's really easy for us to turn around and say that that's a really great idea and I'm going to throw my support behind them. But what we are offering is maybe a little bit more difficult pill to swallow. The pill of personal responsibility, the pill of local control, the pill of self-sufficiency. Maybe that's a more difficult pill to swallow, but we believe that in the long run, when you are given an opportunity to have greater services, greater outcomes for lower cost by getting bureaucracy out of the way. I'm not, just like Billy. And for those of you who are just showing up, this is a panel of young conservative millennials. We are not here to say that government is a bad thing. We think that there should maybe be less of it between you and what you're supposed to be provided by a well-functioning government. We believe that if it gets out of our way, we're going to actually get more for less cost. And that is the message that we need to be sending. Hi, Landry. That is the message that we need to be sending. We are providing.
Social media is a myth.
Thank you.
Fuck that shit.
Alex Jones, all the way. We are here to say we're not here to take away your services or the things that you are now comfortable with having. We can talk about the history of what previous generations did on that front, but we are here to tell you we can actually get you more for less by doing it in a more direct way. And that we would love to have that shot. We would love to have the shot of deregulation, of getting government and local control so much closer.
No, I want to listen really closely.
Crowd's getting a little crazy right now.
It's getting later into the day.
Few more beers, people. Few more beers. We helped with that, right? I know it's not Sunday, but you know, you guys, we're coming to the end of our time together. We have a specific opportunity here in Minnesota that has not been done since the state's inception, right? When we talk about the House, the Senate, and the governorship that we have coming up here in 2018. What do you, because not only are we young people, not only are we Republicans, but we also live in a historically blue state. Now, Donald Trump came very close to changing that, but what needs to happen between now and November of 2018 to see to it that we turn Minnesota red, which is one of our stated goals?
So, under the great leadership of the president, the Republican Party is raising record amount of numbers right now. We're raising record amounts of money at the national level, okay? Through all our national groups, we're raising lots of money, we're raising lots of money, okay? And obviously the president came very close to winning Minnesota, and we're gonna win it in 2020. And in 2018, okay, so we have a great chance to win because typically in midterm elections, Republicans have higher turnout than Democrats. In addition to that, we're raising a whole bunch of money. People are excited, people are fired up. When you look at our neighbors in Wisconsin, as much as I hate to give them credit, I don't know if there's any Packer fans around besides this one. They were also a historically blue state, right? And they now have a Republican governor, Scott Walker. They have a Republican Senate and a Republican House of Representatives. And they voted for our president. So it can be done. It will be done. We're going to win. Like I said earlier, we're going to get so tired of winning. And, you know, we're going to win the governor's race. We have a ton of candidates, all very qualified. So we're excited. And we're going to turn Minnesota red.
And I think also how young people can make a difference in this next election is find a candidate, whether it's in your area or an area around you, find a candidate that you like, get involved, start door knocking, making phone calls. It's not always the most glamorous or fun part of politics, but that's how we get people elected. And if we all help out a little bit more, we can do some amazing things. As a generation, if we show up, we can help out so many people. And then instead of older generations telling us we're entitled, sitting here talking to you guys about how you guys should change, if we show up, we can actually make a difference and people will respect us going forward, all this.
And I think you guys definitely hit on some of the big ones, money and volunteering, right?
You got a question?
So,
Do you have a question or do you have a beer? Well, yeah.
Okay.
So hang on. Yeah, just give it to him.
Okay. All right.
You gotta stand in so you don't get smelled.
All right.
I came here 1 year ago and talked to you guys about Trump.
Yep.
A lot of you thought, well, I don't think so. But now, 1 year later, what do you think?
Support our president 100%, sir.
100?
100%.
Not 99, 98 page? How long have you been a Nazi?
Oh, that's a fun move.
You guys got to be kidding me. You have no questions about your...
Actually, no, I'll answer that.
Okay, so I am a young conservative woman. I've been a Republican my whole life, even before I could vote. I would stand by our president as a proud American, and I think that we need to do it. We are collectively this nation, and we have to remember that he's just one office. There are all other kinds of people. What we should do is call our legislators and tell them, call the governor, send them a letter. That's the best way that we can support the person who was elected by your fellow countrymen to be our president. And also, I think it's good to scrutinize. It's also our responsibility as Americans to ask questions of our government and not always to subscribe to what they say. So it's good that you're asking questions. I just say, you can talk to us, but really you should... I don't have to answer that.
I should ask you an equally well-worded question. When did you stop beating your wife? That's exactly what you just asked us about our affiliation with the Republican Party. It's baseless, and we shouldn't justify it with any further response.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Are you evangelical?
All right. You had a question?
We're done.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
We're done. We're done. Say that.
You're throwing cuss words around.
We're done.
You're not bringing anything of substance to this conversation.
Big part of the Republican Party.
I am not Republican, but why is there not more diversity on this panel? Did you actually?
So we did have that question asked. We have other panels going on throughout the state fair, and so there's a few things. We talked about diversity is not only just about your culture, the color of your skin. It's also about a diversity of ideas and thought. But the other things with diversity is we have other panels that are here. We have a Somali American caucus. We have a Hispanic American caucus. We have the Asian American caucus. And so the millennials that are in our age group were actually on those panels instead of the millennial panel. That's the only reason.
I wouldn't come to the state fair multiple days.
No, but we had other panels where it was a more diverse skin color or appearance.
But also, kind of what I had said before is the GOP in the state and across the country too, but we need to do more about reaching out to different communities. And I think maybe like the past 2 years, we've been doing a little bit more, but it's not where it should be. And the people up here and the younger generation of conservatives are the ones that are demanding it of our local party units and of our candidates as well, to reach out to different communities and bring more people into the fold. If they're voting with us and they agree with us, they should be a part of it.
And actually, I want to answer your question and also get back to Max's question, which is how can we make Minnesota red again? You guys talked about money, you talked about volunteering. I want to talk about ideology. So we, in this state alone, we kind of think of it as it's like the big Viking state. It's actually 70% ethnic population is German and Scandinavian. I'm one of those people. And I'm proud of it. We should all be proud of our heritage, right? And our ethnicity. But our ideology is so diverse in this state alone, not even looking at the rest of the country. And the way I think that we can make Minnesota red again is by talking to people that whether they look like us or not, or they act like us or not, and find out what it is that they care about. I think that we need to get to every corner of the state and learn why is it that the current president, Donald Trump, almost won the state of Minnesota. Why is that? And who are those people? A lot of those people were traditionally Democrats. And for some reason, they felt like, you know what, this is a candidate that is speaking to me, and I have felt like for decades that I haven't been listened to, I haven't been heard. So we, as Republicans, as Americans, we all need to go out and listen to our neighbors and hear what are the issues that matter. It isn't just left and right. We're not just black and white. It is not my skin color and your skin color. There's so much more diversity that we are missing. We need to hear about all these people and connect with them. And then that's how I think we can make our whole state better.
So my boyfriend is female to male transgender. What is your take on the transgender ban? Because I know I've heard a lot of different things from a lot of different Republicans, and I just want to get the full grip on what you guys think.
So no one of us speak for the entire Republican Party, right? And I think you're going to find the millennials, the younger generation, are less worried as much about what gender you identify with, what sex you are. I know it's when you were born is what gender you were assigned with, right? And so a lot of those things actually, it's like I've had a big learning experience just speaking to people. What do they want to be? How they want to be called or identified as. So you're going to find, I think, a lot of the younger generation is not as big of a deal to them. Maybe some of the older generation there is, but even in the Democrat Party, a lot of the older generation are kind of weirded out by it, right? I think it's a youth issue, not just a party issue or a left or right issue. So that's one of the things that our job as the millennials, the younger generation, moving up in the party ranks, being in charge of leadership, that we're going to have to be addressing.
So what's your take on what Trump said about
Banning what?
So on the ban specifically, I think if you look at that, it's quite clear that that was a political ploy to get some distraction on that day from other issues. It had not actually been vetted with the military, and it's not going to go through. It was like
Right. But either way, saying
saying that says for right. Let's just leave that conversation to the side, sir. I think you're going to find that most of us are very open and happy to be welcoming and understanding, and I don't think that specific issue that you're mentioning is actually going to have any traction whatsoever. I thank you very much, and I appreciate your question.
Thank you.
You've had your question, sir. You're under our belt. You can please now.
Okay, I'm not under your belt. All right. Now, there's no way when it
Next question.
There's no way.
But the language has.
You gotta stop
Language to be clear.
You gotta stop crossing.
There's no way would ever have voted for Hillary, correct?
Wait, say it again?
Hillary Clinton, you would have never voted for her in a million years, right?
We didn't.
You had one choice, who was Donald Trump. Was there anybody else in the Republican Party who would have voted for other than Donald, all the rest of them?
Literally all of us.
We all voted for campaigns that were not
No,
that.
this is what I'm being nice.
So I was not a Trump supporter. I was Rand Paul's regional director for his presidential campaign, very libertarian. And so you're going to find within the Republican Party, we had a diverse set of 17 different candidates. And so, not every Democrat's going to support their candidate. But I think you're going to find millennials are going to have a diverse ideology of who they were going to want to support. And most of them are going to say, this is our president. Give your president a chance, just like when Barack Obama was elected. Give our president a chance. Let him do what his job is supposed to be as the elected official, the elected leader of our country.
This has got to be the last one. This has got to be the last question because you're going off the rails right now.
Where are you guys going? All right. Question is,
Here you go.
I'm sure we're all really excited to hear what you have to say. Go ahead. We're holding our breath. Go ahead.
your age group is
Go ahead.
young.
Yes.
Why? Why Donald Trump and no one else?
All right. So
What were you
asked the
raised?
same
Were you
question
raised
like 4 times.
evangelical? What about the abortion issue?
Go have another.
If. Is that it?
Go have another beer. All right.
No. I think it's a huge issue with the Republican Party. Is it? Is it?
You missed a lot at the beginning.
No, I didn't miss. I did. But is that a big issue to you?
I don't even know what your question is.
The question is,
Go ahead.
all right, the question is, Donald Trump said he's against abortion, right? Or he was for it, and then he was against it.
Okay.
What does that weigh in for your vote?
It doesn't.
Never?
Not on mine.
Not yours. How about you guys?
Hillary Clinton.
No.
Let her answer.
Sir, I just want to say that every one of us has different thoughts and opinions, and we have different reasons to vote the way we vote, and I highly respect you for caring and for voting, and that's the best thing that we can all do as Americans is just to get out and vote. And I don't care if we agree on any political issues, I respect you for having an opinion. I'll just leave it at that. I respect you for voting. We have different opinions, and I would hope that especially if you believe in diversity and if you believe in being open-minded, if you believe in free speech, I hope that you would respect every one of us for the way we vote, okay?
Now answer the question.
There we go. So again, we want to reiterate to everybody, we are wrapping up our panel today. We have a panel of young Republicans here. The media don't tell you that they exist, but we let our opponents talk. It is important to have free speech in this country. We do not shut people down. We are willing to listen, and as you can hear, sometimes the ideas are not very good, right? So sometimes the beers are part of free speech, right? Which you can see very clearly. So with that, as we wrap up this panel, I want to ask each of our panelists, what does it mean to you to be a Republican? I'm going to give you the floor. Let's just take a minute each to just talk about our experience as young Republicans and what it means to us to be one.
Younger people.
Start down here. When I was in college, we had 6,500 undergrads, 35 members of the college Republicans. By the time we got to junior year, we changed the message. We got the word out that we were fighting for fiscal responsibility. We were fighting for the types of things that they were not ever hearing about. They were wrong about the right. Most of the people I went to school with came from Manhattan or other very urban centers. By the time we got to junior year, we took that 35 members and turned it into 635 people, active members going on campaigns around the region. Most people are wrong about the right. Most people are wrong about young millennials. Most people are wrong about what we believe, think that we're monolithic, think that we all support every single thing that you hear out there that's a boogeyman. That's not who we are. You've got to talk with us, you've got to hear our hearts, and I think the Republican Party is a party where your voice can carry a lot more weight, because your influence, we want it to be more local. We want your decisions to matter in your life, not in someone else's life. We want it to matter in your life, and that's what we're fighting for fundamentally.
Okay, so when you look at how our economy has changed over time, Republicans and our ideas are the best for the economy. Okay, Democrats want to advance socialist policies and take more of your money and spend it on wasteful government programs. For me, being a Republican and being a part of our party is understanding that, private companies, individuals, teams of people working together are going to do it better than the government. We're always going to get better results when we let private citizens do their work, start companies, create products. And so that's what I'm all about. I'm really about educating people on how capitalism is beneficial to our society. And just want young people to understand that the reason you have your iPhone or anything else you're carrying around with you is because of capitalism, not because of big government. So get involved, join us, and get ready to win in 2018.
So I wasn't raised, I didn't grow up as a Republican. I became a Republican and got involved in politics once I got to college. And the reason I did, and why I'm involved now, is I want everyone to be happy, healthy, and prosperous. And I believe that right now, that the GOP is the best political vehicle to do that.
Okay, so I guess as a constitutional historian, I have the highest respect for liberty and the founding principles of our country. I think fiscal responsibility is a big one that matters to me, and I think for all of us. So fiscal responsibility, self-reliance, and I would also say that me personally, I like to think of it as basing my decisions on love and liberty. So, for example, as a young conservative, I'd say love for an unborn child. I am pro-life. Love for love. I am pro everybody getting married, okay? And then liberty. Just the government has its necessities. We need the government, certainly to protect us from outside threats, and we need it to help us with things like roads. But beyond that, I think that the individual and the businesses and the people of this amazing country know what's best for the people around us, because we're not just some robotic institution. We're people who are living in our communities, and we look around us and we see the people that need help, we see the people that can be there to help, and I think that we ultimately, keeping the power in the hands of the local government is the best thing we can do for all of us.
Repeat the question.
Xavier, what does being a Republican mean to you?
So I didn't get involved in Republican politics till 2012 during the Ron Paul campaign. I'm very libertarian-minded, and I got involved in Republican politics because of that one candidate, that one person, where everything was talking about with limited government, freedom, the government's not going to tell you what to do, and you have liberty as long as you're not infringing on the rights and lives of other people. It resonated with me. And I realized a lot of people within the Republican Party believed in that same concept. And people will ask me, well, why aren't you with the Libertarian Party? Why are you with the Republican Party? A lot of what Allie talked about is the Republican Party I see as the best vehicle to bring liberty and to bring limited government forward instead of a minor party. I just don't think that they can get it done. But the Republican Party, the Libertarians just libertarians, and you can't get something accomplished with just one ideology. That's not working together with a lot of other people. Within the Republican Party, as we mentioned earlier, it's a very diverse ideological field of volunteers and activists and beliefs. And I joined the Republican Party as a leader, and just being a leader with different organizations that I'm involved with is because I thought that the Republican Party was the best way forward.
Thank you all again for joining us. This has been our panel today. We have young people who are Republicans here. What we ask of you is go in, take the corn poll, sign up. Your candidates need your help this year and next. Let's turn Minnesota red!